Well, good day. I'm just going to give Deborah a moment to arrive, and I'll be eager to hear your questions.
Would you like the heater on?
What's that?
Would you like the heater on?
Actually, I'm comfortable right
Okay,
now.
good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Something.
Yes.
Okay. During the morning, while you're doing the interviews and you're inside, it's easy to know when you can come and go, but when you're outside, you don't know when you can come in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if we could place the timer in the window so that people can read it from the outside, know that it's like getting close to the hour or the half hour.
Oh, so they know
So they know, so,
When-
because
when
I
to-
didn't know when to come in today.
when to go in for their interviews.
No, to sit.
Oh, for the set. Oh, some kind of a timer outside here.
This timer, I think if it was in the window, then you can still hear it inside and you can read it on the outside.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Anybody see any problem with that idea?
There's a time sheet outside showing the time. Maybe people don't have a clock. Maybe we just have a clock out there.
Well, if we have a clock that's really easy and convenient to put out there,
I
we could
mean,
do that.
here, in here.
Just the schedule for the clock.
No,
Just-
I'm not making myself clear. Okay,
if you're outside,
outside here, and
Yeah.
it's 10:30. You have no way of knowing it's 10:30, and you don't know that you can come into here to meditate.
so we could either put this in the window, or we could put a clock outside, which would allow you to tell as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know, do we have another clock that would be easy to put there, or should we just put this?
I think we have extra alarm clock,
Oh.
and I will place them outside
Okay.
on the chair somewhere.
Okay,
That should work.
all right. Thank you. All right, well. Now some questions about meditation practice especially.
I have a question, but I don't have question for tomorrow.
It's not tomorrow yet.
Save the question.
You say it, then you'll find out. Okay. I practiced mindfulness during the walking meditation.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard than walking meditation and sitting meditation, because when we doing walking meditation or sitting meditation, one meditation object, but mindfulness is a lot of objects.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you have any shortcut or tip for us?
Well, yes, there is a tip, which what you can do, if you're finding it difficult to manage, is that you can still use the sensations in your feet and legs that are involved with walking, but just don't focus on them in such a tight, close way, but just use them to being aware of the sensations in your feet and legs, to give your mind a little bit of an anchor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When I doing that, I think the main point It's same as meditation. No thought first.
Mhm.
And the other thing, when I see the flower,
Yeah.
if I see the flower, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a sound in my mind.
Well,
Yeah, is it okay or don't do that?
no, that thought is perfect. That's exactly what's appropriate. You are in the moment experiencing the flower, and a recognition of it as beautiful arises in your mind. So it's the thoughts that are not in the present and that are not directly related to what you're actually experiencing in the moment. Now those you wouldn't want to have. You wouldn't want to start thinking about, what kind of a flower it is, and surprised it's out already this time of the year, and maybe I'll plant that in my garden, and my cousin has one like that. That kind of thought you don't want. But just the thought that, it's beautiful, that's very much in the present.
Yeah, I know I make sound in my mental. And like I thought, you tell us before, the soul could be sound or could be picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's okay, it's still mindfulness or not?
It's still mindfulness, yeah. It's especially mindfulness if you're aware that you're having this thought arise. Yeah. So that's good, and that's a good question. Thank you. I'm glad you didn't wait till tomorrow for that one. Yeah. Does anyone else have any experiences with the method that I showed you yesterday? If you've tried it, any experiences that you're interested in discussing? Yeah.
Do you find the instruction you taught yesterday? It's also a good way to remain a little bit focused when we are busy with working and an environment like kitchen, or you're doing your daily work meditation.
Yes.
You just be aware you are doing something.
Mm-hmm.
You are an observer. And then maybe also address Sophia's question.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly right. This practice is it's practice for all of those other situations where it is so easy for you to lose your mindfulness. And of course that's what you want to do, is to be able to have more continuous mindfulness all of the time. So, yeah.
And I also find that it's useful for a certain period of time, you just pick up one task. For example, if I'm eating,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't pay attention to the action of my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just pay attention to the flavor of the food.
Mm-hmm.
So just if I sit there, I just pick that as a subject.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm washing, I can focus on the action of the washing, or just the sound of the dropping water.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe once a time, a subject, an object.
Yes, but in particular, notice how your mind moves. If you're attending to the taste and the flavor of the food, but in the movements of your hand, you'll notice sometimes your attention goes to those movements for a particular reason, and then it might go back. And the same thing, you might be washing the dishes, or you might be listening to the sound of the water, and one or the other, or some other thing, becomes more prominently apparent in your awareness. And so just notice how that's happening. So.
But the mind will go like this, very busy. Action and flavor and sound. And
If you try to, and this is about not trying to do anything in particular, it's just being the observer. Like I said, you imagine that it's somebody else's body and you just dropped in for a visit to see what's happening in there. Somebody else's body and mind. Yeah, and so it's very important to remember that yes, the present moment is so rich with so many things happening that it is beyond all possibility that you can attend to them all. And if you thought you were supposed to, you'd find your mind just, going crazy. So you just watch how the mind moves through all of these different things from moment to moment.
Yeah. That's very more practical.
Yes, right. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question with the metta meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I do metta for someone, and this feeling coming, just suddenly, just like when I'm doing, and there's some feeling coming, like toward this person, and what should I do with the feeling? Should I just keep, looking in the feeling, or should I just keep doing the metta?
A feeling towards the person other than the feeling of metta that you're generating, some different feeling? That's a very good question. It sort of depends on the kind of feeling it is, but most especially if, for example, you were directing metta towards a person and the feeling of annoyance at them for something that they had done should arise. So in that moment, what you want to do is to see what is necessary to make the transition from annoyance to loving kindness and compassion. So what that comes from is that instead of annoyance, see if you can find a basis for patience and understanding. And then if you can find the basis for patience and then a basis for understanding, then will come a basis for compassion, and from that to loving kindness.
So in that process, is the thinking?
In that process is, well, not discursive thinking, but it's a definite activity of the mind that you're looking for the transformation of annoyance to patience. So you have an image of the person in mind, and the feeling of annoyance has arisen in association with either some characteristic of theirs or some particular thing that they said and did. So it's that characteristic or that behavior that you're going to look at to see if you can find the basis for patience. Not thinking analytically, breaking it down into parts, but just looking, observing, directing the attention into that, specifically to see if you can find a basis for patience, okay, or for understanding, or for some other wholesome emotion or some other wholesome point of view that you can take the transition. And this is what's really wonderful, because here you're making a conversion from an unwholesome state of mind to a wholesome state of mind, and you're finding the means and the links for you to make that. Now, it might happen that you are unsuccessful in this. It might happen that, and especially if you're doing a practice where you think of somebody that is a difficult person that you've had a problem with, and you're directing love and kindness towards them, and instead comes exactly these feelings, the reason that you picked them, right? And that might be strong, and it might be that you just in this moment aren't really going to be able to easily see that and make that transition. So that's all right. You just let go of that and just try to imagine that person being happy, being free from suffering. Just try to picture that. And that's what I like about it. If you imagine that, is that if you can visualize that they actually experience that feeling in that moment, wherever they are, and they're surprised by it, and you have this feeling like, yeah, you think you're surprised. You'd really be surprised if you knew who was sending this to you, and that will make you feel good. Yeah, and that will tend to, you know, it's a kind of amusement, almost like you played a trick on them by sending them goodwill instead of animosity. Yeah.
So, the mind seems to have a finite capacity. Like for example, if I fill with one thought of one, for a person, there's no more room for other thoughts for about that person. So it's really up to us how we want to fill, say, that cup. If we fill that cup full of water, there's no room for anything else.
That's true.
So it seems like we can easily manipulate. Well, it's not manipulating. It's just skillfully selecting what we want to put into that cup of water. That cup.
Yes. That is true, and I agree with you. But it's sometimes difficult to do. You know, if the unwholesome feeling that you're experiencing towards that person is particularly strong, you know, it may be really difficult. So if you pour out the dirty water, you may find it immediately refills with dirty water, unless you can put something else in its place. So it's all about finding something else to put in its place.
And it's easy to manipulate other people too. I notice it's like when people talk bad things behind other people's back, other people may initially have an overall positive impression of this particular person, the subject. And then but the third person kept saying bad things about us, so bad things about this particular person. So this person in essence is replacing the good water with the bad water. It's quite easy to manipulate people, in a positive or negative way.
It is.
And it is the same thing we can manipulate our minds skillfully.
Exactly, yes. Yes, that's a very good point. Just as what you tell another person can influence their view, what you tell yourself can influence your view. So, yeah, and when you find yourself thinking negative thoughts about somebody, that is exactly the same as that sort of divisive speech. And you're making an imprint. It's going to. You'll see the person the way that you've told yourself. So, if somebody has a habit that annoys you, and you run that in your mind, what you're doing is you're going to make sure that you are more and more annoyed by that.
Yes.
And you can have exactly the opposite effect if you don't let that run and instead you tell yourself something positive about that person, or even something positive about that habit that annoys you. Because you believe what you tell yourself.
Yeah, and just like anything, your analogy of that the emptiness or the solidness of the object you were talking about, it's quite the same, except that you can skillfully choose what aspect to look at.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, very good.
Sorry, I'm sitting here and listen, and the word quite kind of caught me is manipulation. Okay, I was wondering, when I know it's training mind, but pretty much it's manipulating, or we let go of manipulating and to observe deeper. I'm not quite sure.
Manipulation, as a word, has a negative connotation when we talk about doing it to other people. Because we manipulate other people for our own ends. But the basic principle of it is that you can, the basic principle of manipulating another person is you can alter another person's view, either in a good way or in a bad way, through the things that you say and the impressions that you convey. And while it is manipulation, and while if it's done for the wrong reasons, it deserves the negative connotation that we put on that particular word, manipulation. Nevertheless, the basic process is something that can be done in a positive way instead of a negative way, and is something that we can do to ourselves. And we may question our right to manipulate anybody else, but we definitely have the right to manipulate ourselves in a positive way. And then, in which case, it's no longer, maybe you'd like to use a different word for it, because it's no longer something that you would have that negative connotation with that you do with manipulation.
Meta meditation itself it's really a form of manipulation, skillful manipulation.
Yeah. Manipulation means to deliberately produce a change. Yeah. And so when you deliberately produce a change, whether it is a positive and wholesome thing or a negative and unwholesome thing, really depends on why you're doing it.
Okay, then I guess you might meditate.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe should do that. I don't know, because as soon as I found out I manipulate myself, including the breathing. Okay, then as soon as I will that, and maybe I will put attention on others. It's not continue for this manipulate in order for me to that. So I'm still there. I'm intention to get into the concentration. But if I don't know. I just want to confirm, because then later on in my practice is that if the thoughts come in the past, I just manipulate. Okay, they go and back, right? But then again, become is if that come, just watch it.
Mm-hmm.
They go, and instead of I want to manipulate the go, or because I think my point is I a little bit confused manipulating and wanting.
Okay.
The things I wanting that to change. What's the difference?
I don't think you're confused, and I don't think there's any problem, except that it's because of a particular word. Because if you would say, okay, if there's a thought coming and I try to drive it away because I don't want it in my meditation, you'd say that's manipulation. And from the point of view of your meditation practice, that's not skillful. It's better to just direct your attention away from the thought and allow it to go away by itself. Because if you try to push it away, it's going to come back. So that is not skillful. On the other hand, another situation is in an interaction with a person you find an unwholesome attitude arising, and you recognize it for what it is and let go of it. That's different, because that's skillful. So the only thing is, I think you quite understand, there are some things that you can do with yourself that are wholesome and some things that are unwholesome. And you personally might prefer to designate the unwholesome ones as manipulation. But everything that you do to influence the way your mind works isn't unwholesome or unskillful. Everything isn't unskillful. So if you personally like to use the word manipulation for the unskillful ones and a different word for the skillful ones, that's very good. That keeps them clear in your mind. So I don't think there's a problem here. It's just, to you, manipulation means the unskillful things. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the word manipulation always used as a negative thing?
No. But manipulation is one of those words that people can
misunderstood.
Well, that people can use differently, have different preferences for. And so for one person, they may only tend to use the word manipulation with regard to unskillful actions.
I see.
but you know, somebody else may use that word in a different connotation. To manipulate something, you know, this is manipulation.
Exactly.
So it has a very general, but in all of the language we use, you know, we attach certain connotations to words, and there's certain kinds of words that we will use predominantly one way rather than another, but that doesn't mean that everybody else uses them that way.
Because at the workplace, I manipulate my coworkers all the time because when they have hostility towards each other, I try to help them understand that the other side, you know, these people, they have their circumstances and their other aspects.
And you're comfortable calling that manipulation, but somebody else might not be. They say, no, that's not manipulation because you're trying to help them and, you know, you're not trying to control them, you're just trying to help them. So that's not manipulation. But to you it's manipulation. You know, it's just it's a personal choice of what words we want to use. And this is the problem with any language, is we don't all have exactly the same meanings attached with every word, so we can confuse each other.
Yeah, because most of the time people act in a selfish way, and they manipulate with a selfish intention.
Exactly.
So that word is always being associated with something negative. But then, you know, as a Buddhist, we manipulate for good.
Yeah, but if you're somebody that's very aware of how everybody is always manipulating people for selfish reasons, you may prefer not to use the word manipulation for that.
So what's a better word?
Skillful means.
Skillful means? Well, it doesn't really convey as clearly as trying to convince people.
To be a positive influence.
Positive influence.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not as precise. But,
No.
Yeah, okay. I see your point.
Okay, it's not my job to find it precisely. Yeah.
Because obviously, you know, this is the second time that I use that word. People had a very adverse reaction to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's just a good reminder to you that you need to pay attention to people's reactions to discern if they understand words the same way that you do.
I see.
Yeah.
Yesterday I had something pop out. I want to ask your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think about this compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talk a lot, but sometimes in our lives we really don't like your kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm just wondering how this one, you know, come out. Why I don't like him or her? Because I try to analyze.
Mm-hmm.
I say, okay, teacher told us we are non-self and empty.
Mm-hmm.
So this person is supposed to be empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what make him the personality is the thought and the karma. So actually I'm dealing with this thought and karma. With this person's thought and the karma, the thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't have this idea, like or don't like his karma or what he's thinking. This is the way it is. I shouldn't mad on
Mm-hmm.
the emptiness and some karma, bunch of karma. Then after I have this thought come out, then I feel happier because I understand our body just a slave of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like you told me, if this karma go away, this body, separate, everything's emptiness. So then I feel the compassion more stronger because this person is a slave of his karma or his thought. I shouldn't mad what his attitude or what he's doing. Then I think we should show our true faith should face all the time and smiling all the time because wherever the people they like us or don't like, this is their karma, their thought, nothing to do with me. So this is correct?
Well, it is correct, but there's another side to it too. And that's that you have to remember that how you see that person, that's your karma. How that person is their karma, yes. And how they think and their attitudes are their karma. But in fact, do you really know what that person thinks? And do you really know that person's attitudes? You can know that person's actions. You can see the actions. But when you begin to impute the thoughts and the attitudes and the characteristics, then from that point on, it's not something that you can really know. You can know that, yes, I saw that man strike that child. And because your eyes, that's a perfectly valid cognition. You saw it happen. But beyond that, you don't know. And not only that, your experience is your karma. And so when you, in a more general sense, not this specific example, but when you encounter somebody and you tend to believe that you know things more about them than you do, and then you have a judgment, and all of this is coming from inside of you. Why is it that certain kinds of people that you don't like? Well, sometimes we don't even know what it is, why we don't like somebody, but we just feel that way. If we could examine the contents of our mind, we might find that the only reason we don't like them is they remind us of somebody that hurt us a long time ago, and we've forgotten about that. But we're still reminded, and so we tend to feel towards that person the way we did towards the other person. Sometimes, an interesting thing is that when a person doesn't like something about somebody else, if they were to look really closely, the reason they don't like it is it's something about they have the same characteristic in themselves and they don't like it. So in many different ways, and these are just two examples, in many different ways, the experiences that we're having of other people are coming from ourselves, not from them. And that is the emptiness of that person as well. So now, on the one hand, even if you see, what you know is based on action and on not your perception of their attitudes or their thoughts or what kind of person they are, but their action, you need to restrain yourself from judging the person because you don't know where the action originates. And you may be absolutely correct in saying that this is not a good action, this is something that would better not have happened. If a man strikes a child, as an example. It's, even there may be some very remote, hard to imagine reason why maybe that might even be a good thing, but probably not. But nevertheless, to judge the person goes vastly beyond what we can do, and all of that judgment is really, and that perception is our own karma. So, better to have compassion. You see a person do something and recognize that person is suffering in some way. This action came out of their own suffering. Even actions that most overtly come from desire are ultimately coming from suffering. Because the desire is a manifestation of the suffering that the person is trying to overcome. So, while you may condemn a person's action, what you should have towards the person themselves is compassion. Compassion because their action comes from suffering, and compassion because their action brings consequences. that person is bringing further suffering upon themselves. And so that's the other side of the emptiness of other people, is realizing that it's a projection of our own mind, and it's our karma. How the experience we have in the moment is our karma. You're welcome. Yes.
So I have a question with the compassion. So I have experience there was time I was in the hospital and the lady was next to my bed, and she was kind of really unhappy and suffering a lot from her illness. So I'm compared to her, then my physical and my mental state is better than her, so I feel like I can help her, and then I kind of talk to her, and then we kind of like in this relationship in a couple of days. And there was one day, and she suddenly just started to doing the poo-poo on her bed, like she can't go to the toilet, and because she had this kind of sickness, it's like she can't go to do the poo-poo every day, but she has I think her husband told me that she eat for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then she can do the poo-poo thing in 2 weeks, but suddenly she has to do it a lot in just a couple of days. And I was next to her bed, and so before she had this poo-poo thing, and I feel compassion for her. But then once she do the poo-poo thing, and just one time, and I said, oh yeah, this smells really bad, and I was eating, and I just feel I feel really sad for her that she had to just suffering from this thing, but then after 1 hour she did it again, and then maybe a couple times, and I start feeling angry, and I said, I can't stand it anymore. And then I walk outside the room, then whole floor, and people outside just oh yeah, I smell bad. And I'm next to her, and I smell really bad, and day after day, and it happened, and I started feeling the anger more and more inside of her, and I feel bad that I feel anger toward her, because I know that she's suffering, and she was yearning and in a lot of pain. So, and there's one night it was really cold, and I just decided I can't stand it. I have to go outside and kind of sleep outside the room, and I got a cold, and then I'm really sick, and I get a cold, so I have more anger to her, and to the point that when I look at her, I just can't give her a smile, just kind of so in this sense, I don't know how to really have compassion, and always also to love, and also deal with my anger. And is this my bad karma? Isn't it my karma at that moment, or so I kind of?
Yes, that's your karma at the moment. Yeah. See, you had karma that gave rise to compassion, but you also had karma that gave rise to anger. And then, if you think about what happened, is that when the anger arose, you fed it. You allowed it to be there, you identified with it, and you gave it more energy. And the anger became more forceful. You were creating, by doing that, you were creating karma. You were creating a karma in the present that reinforced the karma that was already there from the past. And the result was more anger and more anger. And what is so beautiful about the story that you say is so wonderful is that because of your anger, you went outside and you became sick because of something that you did, and then you went back and you became even more angry. Yeah. So, and that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, because this illustrates. This is what we do all the time. This is what we do all of the time. Yeah, you know. and it just shows how something like anger compounds itself, and it takes a lot of skill to deal with anger, because anger is a feeling that you can't just drive it away. You can't make it go away. And when anger is present, it demands that it has a right to be there. That that it is the only reasonable way that you could be feeling and reacting. It seems it carries with it this illusion that it's totally justified, and it makes it very difficult to deal with. And one of the ways that we can weaken the control that anger has over us is by reflecting on how our anger makes us suffer, how our anger destroys our happiness, how our anger leads to words and actions that produce more suffering for us in the future, and how our anger only creates more anger. When we can see those things, and each time you notice these things, what the effect that this has, this is a new kind of karma that is an anti-anger karma. Because by recognizing these truths about anger, you counteract to that anger karma. You make it weaker. It may still arise, but it won't have as much power. And if you make this observation about the nature of anger often enough, anger will disappear. It's a very interesting thing.
Even with extreme file odors that are constantly there, which is similarly to like extreme discomfort, pain of other sorts. So I can imagine it's got to be extremely difficult.
Oh yeah, very difficult, right? Very difficult.
Because the cup is constantly being filled. Before you dump it, it immediately fills up with the disgust of the odor.
That's right.
Yeah. So the aversion is it's not easy to overcome in that situation.
And it's not easy to overcome at all. And of course, the first thing is to do anything reasonably that you can do to improve the situation. And we don't need to go into that kind of detail in this particular instance, but if there is any reasonable and practical thing that you can do to modify the situation and to help yourself, then of course you should do that. And then when you have exhausted the extent of the things that can reasonably be done, from that point you need to be working on your own mind and your own reactions. So this is aversion. What's being described here is something that's unpleasant. The smell is unpleasant. It gives rise to aversion. But this is how that aversion eventually leads into anger. And of course anger leads into, if it's unrestrained, leads into cruelty and destruction and causing harm. And so there is a progression here that in the beginning it's just an unpleasant experience. Then it's being filled with aversion, and then it converts to anger. So you see the progression just gets worse and worse as it goes along. And to your credit, at least from what you told us, the anger did not come to the point of cruelty. You didn't do or say something that would strike out towards the person, but some people would have, and that's how it can. That would be the continuation of it.
This is very interesting because, like other people's cruelty, the reasons why people don't like them, is also like a form of sickness. It's kind of like that person, couldn't help but poop constantly with extreme foul odor. Just like a very very angry, very disagreeable, very unlikable person. This person is seriously sick, and the same principle applies. This person, this person is constantly oozing out, very, very foul manners, and we should have sympathy towards.
That's exactly right. You're saying it reminds me. I have somebody who lives not too far away from me who's like that, and all the other people around, they really don't like him. And if his name comes up, then they're just
sounds like my neighbor.
He did this and does that, but I always treat him like a friend because I figure he doesn't have very many friends, so he needs anybody that anybody that can. But yeah, it's a sickness with him. It's no different. He can't help himself. He doesn't like being like that. Although this particular person justifies being like that.
Right.
That's his reaction, is that he really can't help being like that. But since he can't help being like that, he's not going to say, well, I'm sorry, I'm helpless. He's going to say he's going to justify it and say,
Right. That's why they stay like that.
That's
wrong view.
That's right.
Illusion.
Yeah. Right.
Before we go to the other topic, I really want to say very grateful, Maple. You say this. I think there's a courage and very authentic for you to express your feeling in that. And I think I've done a lot and we more mindful, regarding to some, because a lot of times I say, like either rationalize, say why I have this feeling or attitude. But I really appreciate and grateful you so authentic and express even how wholesome and unwholesome the things, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And as a person's understanding deepens and they start to recognize the way things really are, then they begin to recognize somebody else's suffering as their own suffering. And Garchen Rinpoche, so you and Scott had a chance to listen to, he spent many years in prison. And a prison where there was forced labor and there was torture. And he was imprisoned because he was a Buddhist monk. And so within the prison, they were trying to continue their practice and training as much as they possibly could, in spite of the fact that it was forbidden, and they would be beaten and tortured if they were found, doing any of the practices for which they'd been in prison. And yet, his attitude towards those who imprisoned him is compassion. When he talks about them, he talks about the compassion he feels for them, and some of them didn't want to do what they did, but they didn't know what else to do, and others took pleasure in it, but they brought upon the bad karma that they were bringing upon themselves. He just feels compassion for it rather than blaming them and things like that. So this is the potential that we have. Is not just to have compassion even in the face of unpleasantness, but when unpleasantness goes to the extreme of forced labor and torture and an attempt to suppress a person's religious practices, and indeed many of those prisoners died. So it was to that extreme. But,
you have to be invited to have that kind of capability to love the person who's constantly torturing you.
Yeah.
You have to be invited.
I think you do. I don't think that comes until...
Which fruit of enlightenment?
What's that?
Which fruit of enlightenment?
Which fruit? Well, it comes by degrees with all of them. But I think you've got to be right up there with the top fruits when it's the people to torture.
Because it's incredible. That's incredible for me to imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have bad experiences in the past, and I forget. I can, let go of those angers and hatreds, but it's in no comparison to the level of torture and the constant torture, and even at that time when they're torturing him, he can be so incredibly kind. Still fill the mind with love and kindness. It's incredible. Something very wonderful to work on.
It is, yeah.
Actually, I think that kind of compassion actually is like freeing, basically free your own mind.
That's right.
I mean, sometimes if I'm agitated or angry at some person, and the moment I feel loving kindness, I have compassion toward the action, I feel immediately much better.
That's right. Yeah, because our those emotions that we have, we don't enjoy them. Yeah. And to be able to free ourselves of them is to immediately diminish our suffering and increase our own happiness.
Well, it sounds really, really clear and logical, but why is it so extremely difficult to do when people are torturing you? Because the mind is constantly being filled with pain and aversion. I think that aversion, like you said, it takes steps.
Well, the reason it's so difficult is it is triggering the most basic kind of drives that we have within us, and it is very much as long as we still believe in ourselves as the self is some permanent substantial entity that is being subjected to this. It's those drives are going to be at their peak, at their maximum. So a person who can have a lot of compassion in other circumstances, when confronted with that, somebody starts crushing your fingers one at a time. It's not only the pain; that's my body you're destroying.
Right.
That finger will never work again.
Right. Right. You depend on it to do everything.
That's right. So it triggers the strongest of all drives. You can't actually do anything about the situation, so it all becomes emotion of hatred.
Even people with the wisdom to accomplish the high fruits, their karmas can still be pretty horrific. I mean, the kind of bad karma they can suffer is still pretty horrific. But the physical torture of what you just described, these people are tortured all the time.
Yeah. Well, yes. If you look at the sutras, you'll find stories of enlightened people who suffered severely in ways, including the chief disciples of the Buddha himself. Great suffering. Well, I shouldn't say suffering, because I want to use that word to distinguish between suffering and the pain of the body and the pain of difficult situations. So, yes, they are still subjected to those things, but by virtue of being enlightened, then they don't need to suffer in response to them. The pain is only pain. The loss is only loss.
Constant pain has to be pretty. Constant pain has got to be pretty unpleasant.
Constant pain, yeah. And constant pain can be very destructive to a person's mind and their personality. So, best to fortify yourself against it before you have it.
Yes.
But there again, I know of a person in Tucson. She is crippled with severe rheumatoid arthritis, which is very painful, and often even medication won't help it. But she she started meditating originally just to help her deal with the pain. Now, she still has more. She has more pain because the disease has gotten worse, but she's bothered by it less than ever at all. And she teaches meditation too. So
Actually, in some ways, actually very beneficial. Like S.M. Goenka, the reason why he wanted to learn how to meditate is because he had these chronic headaches. So he actually motivated him to do a lot of good things.
that's right.
Yeah. In fact, we talk about, I don't know too much about karma, but I really feel the one way is that, those kind of a hardship circumstance, in fact, is if the invited person or person loves it, if can go through that and still not lose or still enhance that virtue, then other circumstances happen, never can take that away. That means that the circumstance, even though it's so hardship, but contribute to for this person become even further to that. Just like a Gachan Rinpoche, in that 20 years, if those people torture him, it's not take away his kindness and compassion, then his compassion is so perfect and so purely, and no any other circumstance can take away anymore.
That's right. He's already been through the harshest test.
Yeah,
So.
I feel that way. So instead of saying, I don't know too much of karma, saying, okay, how come these enlightened people still have karma, need to go through this terrible situation? And I think, in come to the certain level, I think that terrible situation become the test, for these enlightened people get even further and get even crystal.
Not necessarily further, just that he did well in the test. Not necessarily it means that they have furthered their abilities, their wisdom. But the thing is, for people like me, I think it's awesome that I get to see the power of the Dharma.
Yeah.
Because of course it's terrible that this person went through so much pain. But the thing is, the way he was able to maintain his peace and kindness, it's a show. It's a show of some super power.
I just remember the one story, but I don't want to go through the story. Okay, that is that. But if the person wants to really learn what is forgiveness, if the circumstance and things happen so smoothly, never know what is forgiveness mean. Unless the circumstance, the people treat him so badly and so hurt so much, and then he can go into and really forgive. Then this is the things he really learned. If know this kind of circumstance, he said, okay, I'm so forgiving. Everybody treat me so good, and definitely I feel like I can forgive any little things.
Well, I would imagine an enlightened person, even never having that kind of a trial, would still do just as well if they were giving the same test.
If they're truly enlightened, yeah.
Yeah, if they're truly enlightened, they will do well in that test. It doesn't, being enlightened does not require us to get tortured.
No,
I didn't tell you about that part. Come to next time.
Oh, I signed up for the wrong class.
Maybe it will be quicker.
Or maybe you'll be a lot slower.
Very interesting, when I see those enlightened people, I start to wonder how much courage they have, in this hardship, and that, including Jesus. If we talk about this Buddha and other thing, but including Jesus, the thing. And if we use the normal, we say karma, I don't put that together. Okay, I feel like Jesus, he just goes through that and with this tremendous courage and face it and do not escape from that hardship.
That's true. That's a very good example. Yeah. And what did he say before he died? He said, "Forgive them." So.
because at that point they are not self, right? So they don't see their body. They don't like feel their body is that important. So they just think that their body is just a tool for the manifestation of Buddha nature.
It's true that they regard their body as an instrument, and they regard their body as just as important, but no more important than any other person's body. Yeah, but they still feel the pain. Okay, well.
Yeah, I just want to add that it's not actually about the torture of the body. I think if a doctor will take off your hand, you will say okay because it's for your own good.
Mm-hmm.
But the torture for the Rinpoche, I think it's because it's enlightened person is psychologically, mentally, and spiritually transformed, the inner self. So if people beat me, I got angry because it's not only about the pain I got. It's about he beat my self-identity or instinct like this. It's inside psychological part.
That's right, yes. Yes, great suffering is associated with just being restrained and overwhelmed by the power of others. Even if they don't cause one iota of physical pain, just that in itself.
Just very, very quickly, sorry.
That's your lunch, man.
Very brief lunch. Many years ago, I had a dream about getting shot to death. And then I was bleeding to death. But the thing is, I had absolutely no anger or hatred, and I entirely forgave the person who shot me. And I was actually entirely at peace. Of course, I'm imagining it's probably a lot easier to do in the dream than in real life. Or maybe it's not so far off. I don't know. Because I died many times in my, I have many dreams of death for many years. And I died in all sorts of ways. There's like the most recent one. I always thought I had a terminal illness. I was going to die in 3 days. And I just started calling people to thank them.
You're just a bodhisattva who followed
You're already enlightened.
It must be.
Well, thank you. This was a very enjoyable discussion.
Yes, it is.
And so I'll let you go to eat and have a wonderful afternoon of practice.